is here, and we can begin. Oh, John, welcome once again.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Good to be here.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started with questions. Let's see, in front, right there.
Hi. Thank you, D23 Enterprise. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your meetings with Marvel, and then any response to the reports of the Ant-Man project.
Oh, Marvel. Yeah, I had met. I had met all the folks from Marvel a couple of times, and they're terrific. And the whole Ant-Man thing is just a rumor. I haven't heard anything about it, so.
Yes, right here.
Yes, Doug Marsh from LaughingPlace.com.
Hi, Doug.
We've seen those beautiful models of Radiator Springs downstairs.
Isn't that great?
I hope we'll be seeing you near them sometime today. And my question is, during the presentation this morning, you mentioned during Princess and the Frog some tantalizing mention of things coming to Disneyland and the theme parks. Can you tell us anything more?
Oh, I just mentioned they're going to be doing some fun stuff with the music and the characters around this holiday season when the movie's out in the theaters. It's going to be terrific because of the, with the characters and stuff. We always try to. One of the things that I always love with the movies that I make, I try to do really fantastic walk around costumes and characters. Working with Dan and Kiriam and the group at Disney. They do such a great job, and then I always like to think about sort of where in the parks we could put the characters so they have a sense of place. You know, like if you've been to Disneyland, the little Pixie Hollow area for the Tinkerbell characters, you know, that's something that's really important for me, so that Tinkerbell, who's supposed to be 6 inches high, is just not walking through the parks. You know, we want to give them a sense of place. So.
On the side, in the torture.
Fred Topel with Sci-Fi Wire. I love the part in the Toy Story 3 trailer where the whole home video dissolves to the graduation photo. And it made me think, what have Buzz and Woody's reaction to other milestones been? Like maybe when Andy got his driver's license at 16 or went on his first date.
Well, in Toy Story 3, when we were really starting to think about what the idea, that we could do for the third movie, we really just tapped into kind of our own, what's going on in our own lives. Because Toy Story is that. It's between myself and Andrew Stanton, Joe Ranft, Pete Docter. It's really so much of our own lives are in these characters and these situations. And I think for me, as we were developing the story, I had just dropped my son Ben off at Loyola Marymount, University here in Los Angeles. So I was thinking, it's in Los Angeles. I'm down here all the time. But I tell you, driving away when you leave your child behind at a college, all I could think about was when he was a little kid going sliding down the slide. So it was very emotional for me and my wife. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to tap into with Toy Story 3, that kind of similar emotions. And I think that's, with Buzz and Woody have been there the whole time through his life, and it's a very special moment in their lives. And so it's kind of a really fun time to tell the story.
But did you imagine the milestones in between in the Toy Story?
Not really. I mean, just other than our own, sort of things that were taking place, around the time of the film.
And the second to last row, Hannah, are you? Yes.
Mr. Lasseter, thank you for being here this weekend, and above all else, thank you for everything you've done for animation, both computer and hand-drawn. My question is, I'm very excited about the next sequel to Toy Story and also to Cars. Are there any ideas to possibly make sequels to The Incredibles or possibly Monsters Inc. In the future, with you as the chief creative officer? Thank you.
Well, it's a great question. It really is a great question. Unfortunately, I can't answer that question. I can't talk about that. It's a good. It started with a compliment. That was nice. No, really. We were very excited about about the ones we've announced, because we at Pixar, it's really important to, as I always mention, you've heard me say it before, but you have to do the three things really well. Tell a compelling story, populate with memorable and appealing characters, and put that story and those characters in a believable world. what's exciting about coming back to doing the sequel is the characters in the world are created, and it's fun to start thinking of new and different stories that you could tell with them. And we're really excited about with Toy Story 3 and with Cars 2 and the things that we're doing there.
Second row in the back.
Yeah, Leo Holzer, Bay Area News Group, Trans Herald. You've used lots of quotes from Walt Disney. Quality is a great business plan, and so on and so forth. What are the lessons you've learned as a student of Disney, kind of looking at his life, and how excited are you about the museum in San Francisco?
The Walt Disney himself, I was so fortunate to be at a particular place in time. I went to Cal Arts in the very first year of the character animation program. And my teachers were these great Disney artists that they had pulled out of retirement. Jack Hanna, Ken O'Connor, Elmer Plummer, Tee, among others. And one of the things I enjoyed the most in those classes was that in the afternoon they would just start reminiscing and telling stories of working with Walt Disney. And it's interesting to hear those stories. And then when I got to the studio with Frank Thomas and Olive Johnson, were two of my biggest mentors there, and just kind of hearing stories. And it's interesting how that is a part of my education as much as sort of learning how to draw and learning, the principles of animation and film grammar, those kinds of things. And it's interesting when you go back, because one of the things that Walt I heard a lot about, and I kind of really sort of try to emulate, is that he was always trying to push the technology of the films. He was one of the great innovators in film history, Walt Disney and the studio. And you think about all of the things that they developed there, but they were always in the service of story. It was always about taking the story to new heights. The other thing he did is he constantly was teaching his artists. The Don Graham, he worked with Chouinard Art Institute at the time, which was one of the schools that Disney bought that he formed Cal Arts with. And so we actually at Pixar and at Disney Animation, we have an internal, at Pixar we call it the Pixar University. It's an internal group that we constantly are teaching our artists to become better and better, because you have to be constantly growing as studios. So I think those things. And, it's just his focus on story and art. I think if you think back to each of his films, they're truly timeless. And that's the thing that is, when you create a film, it's really hard to do. It takes 4 years of your life to make a movie. And all of the Pixar films have been 100% original stories. And it is a challenge to sit there, start with a clean sheet of paper, and start thinking about what you could do with with these stories of these characters, and how you can entertain audiences. And it's something that I always think about, of making sure these films are timeless. Where we don't choose topical humor subjects or things, and we want to. And Steve Jobs, when I was, who was my partner at Pixar all these years. He was talking to me while I was making Toy Story, and he said, John, the computers that I make at Apple, they have a lifespan of maybe 3 to 5 years. 5 years at the most, and then they're basically a doorstop, because the technology keeps moving forward. And he said, but if you do your job right, this movie could last forever. And that's something we really focus on. When you watch a film like Snow White or Pinocchio, or especially Bambi, when you watch Bambi up on a big screen, it entertains audiences today as well